Space, the final frontier. Space Station Ashland sits on the edge of Federation space with its companion ship, the USS Dalamis Christian. The space around them is full of mystery and strange wonders, where secrets are kept and danger lurks around every corner. The crew of the Dalamis Christian must navigate treacherous waters as they work to protect the Federation. But as they peer into the unknown, they will discover that the line between friend and foe is not always clear. They will be tested like never before and will face challenges that will push them to their limits. Join us on this adventure as we explore the farthest reaches of space and uncover the hidden truths that lie within the shadows. Tabletop Journeys presents Star Trek: Preservations.
All right, reminding everybody about our mission for the season 3 episode, number 4, Some Like It Hot. And with all due apologies to Robert Palmer, various members of and Duran, known as Power Station, one of my favorite 80s tunes, and I had to do something with it. So get on Spotify, listen to that song if you're not familiar with it. It's a lot of fun. It's a great tune. The video's 80s. That's all I'll say about that.
It was from the 80s.
That episode was crazy fun. I really enjoyed the ratcheting temperature issues. I thought it put some interesting things in play. And I got to tell you, thought process when I was working on those roles is I have to be able to get one of my Andorians up in this. And so glad Tanari jumped. And it was so in character and perfect. Love it. Absolutely love it. Let's dig into our mission directives and reputation roles. So the mission directives: assist the Ashland Station Planetary Survey Team with the analysis of the anomalous sensor readings on Lano. Investigate the nature and origin of the subspace distortions affecting Lano's stabilization. Conduct planetary survey and collect scientific data from the Genesis-formed protoplanet. Finally, determine the cause of the irregular energy patterns threatening the planetary destabilization. And of course, all the normal Starfleet protocols are in place as general directives. With that said, we're going to jump right into the positive influence questions. I'll ask them out loud, and then we'll go one at a time with everybody's answers. So the first question: was your mission successful? I think I'll just let a group answer happen on that one. So y'all go for it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
As much as you can say it's successful when we blow up a planet.
The planet was blown up anyway.
Good
All you had
point.
to do is, all you had to do is get people off of it and some other things. All right. The next question will go individually. Did you positively use one or more of the mission directives? Captain Tobor.
We didn't. Not as reasons to spend determination.
Okay. And Ocean, did you positively use one or more of the mission's directives? So
As
did
a
you
reason-
spend determination using one of those 4 mission directives that I listed at the beginning of this part of the session?
Yeah.
Determination was used on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'm thinking Lieutenant Nealon used one of her values with that determination, but it wasn't one of these 4 mission directives.
This would be a reach, but I'll throw it out there. The determination that I spent was to find out how the scientific data from the planet was being corrupted and redacted. Like I said, that's a reach. I'll accept a no on that, but
Because of the way the very first directive is worded, assist Ashland Station Planetary Service Team with analysis of anomalous sensor readings on Lano. You're asking about the redaction and how that worked and using a determination for that. I do think falls in there because it's basically part of the analysis of the information.
But Adam,
So-
didn't you use your value Starfleet is about the honor and such to track it down? That's
Yep.
what I thought I heard you say during
Oh.
the session.
That's
Use it-
why I
use
was
it-
saying it's
yeah.
a reach.
So had you at the time used that instead of the value you had, you could have got a yes here, but then you wouldn't be able to use the value for future advancement like you would
Got
now.
it.
So
All
it
right.
would have been a trade-off. So either would have worked. You made a decision in game. We'll stick with what you used in game, but
Oh, yeah.
there would not have been a way to get the benefit of both, which is a
Sure.
tip for the listening audience and players specifically. You can use values, you can use mission directives. You, as a player, by way of your character, need to decide what makes most sense in that scenario. Specifically, what are you looking for? If it's regarding personal advancement, it's probably not going to work to use the directives, and certainly not for this scenario. I imagine there could be one where that might happen. But if you're using this, could be useful for reputation advancement. There's wins, but it does change the nature of those wins.
That's
Great.
fair.
So moving quickly, because I said I was going to ask this question individually, just in case somebody else had their own take that we wanted to discuss. Dave?
I have to agree with the other two.
Okay. And Lacey?
I would say no for me.
Okay. The next positive question. Did you obey orders given to you by your superiors?
I would say yes.
Agreed.
All right.
Mhm.
And Lacey?
Yes.
All right.
Nari did violate standing orders, but
That's a whole different category, right? The bad reputation roles.
Yeah, we'll see if that comes up. I think you're good to say you did not violate any
Mhm.
specific orders, but yeah. Let's see here. I think the answer to this is a general no, because there really wasn't combat
right.
All right.
and or hostilities. Let's see.
Nor
Did you establish common ground or peaceful cooperation with those who were newly encountered or were previously hostile towards you?
we didn't have either of those.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be a reach to suggest that Thalor was hostile. It would be very much a reach.
Okay. And Dave?
I agree.
Lacey?
Agreed.
Did you directly contribute to the saving of lives, innocent people, or your fellow crew? I think that's a resounding yes for everyone. But if somebody thinks that, no, I did nothing to help anybody survive this whole exploding planet thing, feel free to decline the yes here. Finally, did you take all reasonable actions to render aid to those in urgent need or distress?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that also falls
Yeah.
into that resounding yes category. So with that said, everybody's got 4 positives. And asking the negative questions. Was your mission a failure? I think
Nope.
that's
No.
a no. And did you challenge one of the mission directives? That's also
Nope.
a no. Were you disobedient to your superiors?
I'm saying no
No.
for Tobor.
Yeah.
Tanari left the ship without permission.
Yeah, I would have to say Tenare scores a yes on that one.
I'm willing to accept that.
But maybe worth it.
In the drama of the show, sometimes you do that.
Let's see here. Were personnel under your command killed during the mission?
Nope.
All right. That's a big no. Did you employ force to any ends other than defense of ship and crew?
Nope.
Nope. Lethal force is a nope.
Nope.
Did you take unnecessary risks during the mission?
Okay, I'll put that down.
So I actually had a question about that because, Lenika, I forget if I was having this conversation with Josh or with you, but there was the question that came up as to whether or not the use of bold counts as an answer to that.
So I've had this conversation at some of my live tables as well, and I do think it's fairly situational because in some aspects there can be scenes where using bold is just the manner in which you do a thing does
Mhm.
not necessarily indicate unnecessary risk. But if you use it, it certainly indicates the possibility. So I think anytime you've used it, you have to say, does it apply or does it not? So it brings up the discussion, but it doesn't automatically equal a yes. I would say something like flying a Saber class ship in Atmo is a bit of a risk, especially when the primary nature of the mission was already accomplished. All you had to do is get Tenari out of there. Flying Atmo to get the enemy ship, that's a personal DC kind of mission. That would be an unnecessary risk. In the situation where you have somebody who claims they can do the thing, going down to the planet without sussing that out with your captain without orders, that would be an unnecessary risk. But I think every other risk y'all took, positioning your ships, trying to get loose on the fly, those were necessary risks. Most of the use of bold, I think, were definitely in keeping with needed to happen in order to successfully complete the mission.
Sounds good. I just had a note to bring that up when everybody was here.
It's a valid question. And like I
Yeah.
said, I've had it come up at a couple of my live tables when we're doing it. And it really depends on the mission.
Okay. Yep.
So
So
great question.
two things on the recovering the ship. A, I was operating under maybe the faulty assumption because it was in the magma in the planet is what was causing the disruption, and then by pulling it out, it would save the planet. So to me, I didn't think that was an unnecessary risk. And then secondly, because it was the Talaran ship with the subspace weapon that we need for the overall the Epsilon mission, that too was a worthwhile risk.
I think, and happy to discuss it, my thought was this. If the weapon is destroyed, which means there's no epsilon contamination of the alpha quadrant, that destroyed weapon in the magma of a Genesis protoplanet, when that planet is destroyed, that can no longer create problems.
But also, we have no idea what would happen if that weapon is in the planet when it explodes. Could rip a hole in subspace for all we know.
So there is that. If that was your thought process, that is somewhat valid. The one thing I would say, though, the Saber is not an Atmos ship. And so, almost by definition, if you fly a non Atmo thing in Atmo, you are taking a risk. And it would be considered somewhat unnecessary in that case. Because your mission is to stop contamination, even if there is the added benefit of we don't know what it could do, the risk becomes all the lives on this ship could be in jeopardy by taking the ship in for something we know is going to be destroyed. Maybe the better thing would be to go away. So I think that's where that tension comes in. So I would think that would be a yes on the risk scale in this case.
Fair. Had we been able to get it with a tractor beam outside the atmosphere at like a higher difficulty, but going Atmo lowered the difficulty, I would call that an unnecessary risk, but there was like no way to do it. But I'll take the rule and I'll take the hit on ordering the ship into the atmosphere as unnecessary. But
if I can give you behind the curtain, we were at OP4. That's what made doing it from out of atmosphere impossible.
that's fine. But it was like,
So, at some point at lower degrees of heat, it could have been possible to do it from higher up.
Yeah.
But once OP4 came into play, that difficulty became greater than 5. And since there are not challenges greater than 5, it is that
impossible by
that
definition.
trait that made it impossible.
Yep.
That was the math calculation.
Honestly, I thought we were saving the planet by pulling it out. So I didn't know it was untenable.
Yeah, so it didn't come up because you guys didn't, and there were timing reasons, so absolutely fine to have not taken the time to got that detail. But as written, the issue was it was the ship that was saving the planet to begin with. The planet was unstable when it was created. It was already in this process. The subspace distortion interacting with the proto matrix is what was causing it to be stable.
I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah. So by removing it, you were destroying the planet. It's just that it was failing anyway. The only question is, could you get your people out and collect data before the inevitable occurred? All right. So with that, great questions, great stuff there. Let's see here. There's no lethal force use, so I'm going to bypass those two questions.
No lying, cheating, no innocent life, no unethical or illegal.
So I'm going to ask a question because I did ask a very specific question in our denouement about are you going to stop and investigate things before you transmit and report what you have to Starfleet? And you said yes.
And more importantly to that, we're going to do the investigation, and then I am going to falsify the reports that the ship was destroyed in the protoplanet so that Janok and whoever doesn't know we got the ship.
So I do think that falls under yes with anybody who knows the information. Would now be complicit with a yes to the final question of did you permit a colleague or subordinate to act unethically or illegally during the performance of their duties?
Well,
I
but
would not only be complicit in it, I probably would have been prepping certain things for the captain before he even asked for it.
and to be fair, we're operating in compartmentalized secret mission parameters. I mean, I'm not going to not tell the admiral on Aslan, but I'm not dumping it into the main database that gets to Starfleet intelligence, who we know is compromised.
Okay. So your admiral who's Epsilon cleared, you're going to confirm with him, but it's not going to go out for general information. So you are compartmentalizing the info.
Yes.
Okay.
And compartmentalizing the existence of the ship up to and including studying it as much as we can and destroying it.
And so, from a mission parameter standpoint, that is absolutely accurate and not a bad thing. However, it's still in opposition to the Federation and Starfleet standard protocol. So, I think the question still is a yes. It's just better than it could be because you're still not, we found a thing, we're explorers. Here's what we explored and found. And it specifically says in the pursuit of your duties. And so it's not like you're doing something against your duties or against your mission parameters. It's just that in this case, your duties put you against Starfleet's standard expectations.
And again, I'd say if we hadn't had multiple instances of proof that our intelligence is compromised, I would feel like it is unethical not to report this. In fact, I would argue reporting it through the quote unquote proper chain would be unethical because we would be informing our adversary of what we found in the plan.
And I can
So
tell you there's a lieutenant commander that would agree with you, but I don't think that changes the letter of the law.
yeah, and to play devil's advocate, Joe, not that I want us to take the hit, but moving in less than transparent method, it's not something we shouldn't be doing, but it could be a hit to our reputation, and that's what we're discussing.
So with that, how many no's do we have?
So I've got 2 then.
I have 3.
I have one, presuming that I would be in on that last one, which I assume I
Okay.
would invest. I'm
Yes.
probably going to be a part of researching that ship.
And Adam?
I'm at 1.
And with that, we're going to go with Captain Tobor. You have 4 yeses to build your dice pools, and you have 2 no's, so your difficulty is 2.
My
And what's your
target
total
number
dice
is a
pool?
12. I've got an 11, an 8, a 12, and an 18. So I've got 3 successes. So 1 above. I'm going to, with my 1 point, spend it to commend to give Adam another die.
Excellent. Okay. And Commander Ocean?
Okay,
Makes sense.
cool. Thank you. All right, so that gives me 5 dice. My target is also 12. Difficulty of just the 1. That's nice. That's 3 dice I rolled so far. I got a 1, a 10, and a 15. I got 2 more dice, a 6 and a 3. Wow. Yeah. All right, so I'm at 6.
Difficulty 1, so you've got 5 acclaim.
All right. So you have 5 acclaim. And
Yep.
how would you like to spend yours?
I'm going to put a commendation in for Tanari for putting himself at personal risk.
And what are you going to do with the
Okay.
other 4?
A couple nice awards you could get.
I don't think there's an award that's appropriate for this particular mission. Nick, I'm going to spend 3 of it to create a trait for the character which reflects their achievements, recognition, or special status.
Okay.
I am going to look to generate a trait that deals, and I could talk to you offline about what this would actually be called, But this is something to cement the connections that I've been making under the table with various other people in Starfleet.
Got it. All right.
And then the final acclaim, I will give one acclaim to Lacey.
Tanari.
Chazilra, I have 5 dice and a difficulty of 3. And my number is 11. I believe that's 5 successes. Subtract 3, that means I've got 2. Let's see. Let me spend 1 for gain favor. And we can, I guess, at some point discuss who that is with.
It should either be with the lieutenant commander or the Andorian.
It should narratively be one of the
Be
folks
someone-
that you interacted with. And honestly, you interacted with the lieutenant more than you did the lieutenant commander. So that, to me, would make the most sense. But you did help
Yep.
maneuver people, so you could build something from that also.
Yeah, so let me do the acclaim with the lieutenant.
Okay, Lieutenant JG.
Yep, and then I will,
Dallo.
and then I'll pass 1 extra one down to Narilla.
Wow, I feel like I'm really rolling the dice. Thank you. So I got a 1, 3, and 4, which I think are all the really good ones, and I guess 7. And then I also got 19 and 20.
That doesn't matter that much. So
Because you
your
succeeded.
reputation is a 3?
My
Or 4?
reputation is a 4.
So the 1, 3, and 4, those are all doubles.
Actually, isn't the 20 a reprimand?
It only is a
Oh,
reprimand if you
oh,
fail
oh,
the
If you get
test.
more successes. Thank you. Okay.
3 criticals and then 1 normal success and 2 failures.
So
First of all, promote yourself.
that is 7 successes.
With a difficulty of 1 or 2?
1.
So you had 7 successes. That gives you 6 acclaim.
Okay. What can I do?
3 for promotion?
All right. I'll promote myself.
All right. So you are now a full-fledged lieutenant versus a lieutenant JG. And that leaves you with 3 more acclaim yet to spend.
So since I have the untapped potential and it will have to go away, can I choose another one or is it like a wait kind
Nope,
of
you
thing?
get to
you would.
choose.
Yeah, you would definitely need to choose.
I'll do that later. How much was that? 3?
So you can do a status, which again, you get a trait for add 3. So you could either do a like subspace expert.
Okay. I like a trait. Can it be a trait that helps people? Because I feel like that was a big part of what I did.
Go like next to your species trait and your Starfleet officer trait. It'd be like subspace expert. So when you're dealing with a subspace phenomenon in the future, you can bring it in and say, this task's easier because I'm an expert.
Okay. Great.
So subspace expertise. All right. Just to recap, Captain Tobor had 4 positives, 2 negatives. The result of the roll was 1 acclaim, to which Captain Tobor commended that acclaim to Commander Ocean. Commander Ocean also had 4 positive, only had 1 negative. With his rolls, had 5 acclaim, to which he commended 1 to Lieutenant Commander Tanari and commended another to then Lieutenant J.G. Nealon, but picked up a status trait involving his connections and various dealings with folks. And we'll title that and explain that in greater detail at a later point. Lieutenant Commander Tanari had 4 positives, 3 negatives. After rolling, had 2 acclaim, using 1 to have a 1-point connection to Lieutenant J.G. Thalor, and used the other to commend then Lieutenant J.G. Nealon. Finally, Lieutenant J.G. Nealon had 4 positive, negative was 1. After her rolls, had 6 total acclaim. With that 6 acclaim, was promoted to lieutenant, and then purchased the status trait of subspace expertise. And with that, we have come to an end for the mission, Some Like It Hot. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for sticking with us. I'm going to let our cast say their goodnights and goodbyes, and we will see you next time around.
Live long and prosper.
Take care, all.
Until the next game.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Good night, all.